Early morning light filtered through the blinds as Jeffrey Epstein sat alone at his large mahogany desk. Papers, files, and scattered notes covered almost every inch of the surface. His eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned each document with a mixture of tension and focus. The quiet hum of the office was interrupted only by the soft shuffle of papers and the distant tick of a clock on the wall. A sense of anticipation hung in the air. Every detail mattered, every move was measured. His assistant, a calm and precise professional, entered briefly to hand over a new folder, her expression neutral but attentive. Epstein glanced at her, nodded slightly, and returned to his meticulous review. This was a day of planning, a day of strategy, and he knew that every decision would carry consequences far beyond the walls of this office. One of the biggest expectations surrounding the Epstein files was simple but explosive: names. People believed the documents would finally expose powerful figures who had crossed paths with Epstein behind closed doors. While the files stop short of proving criminal guilt, they do reveal something else: embarrassing, uncomfortable, and deeply troubling connections. Emails and records show Epstein communicating regularly with influential figures from media, business, sports, and politics. In many cases, the conversations were inappropriate, strange, or suggestive, raising serious questions about judgment and awareness. To be clear, being mentioned does not automatically mean a crime was committed. But these exchanges reveal how casually Epstein was treated by people who should have known better. Some individuals quickly issued statements, distancing themselves and expressing regret over ever associating with him. Others went silent. What became clear is this: Epstein was not operating in isolation. He was surrounded by people willing to ignore red flags, and the files exposed just how close he was to the centers of power. As more details from the files surfaced, a pattern began to emerge: exposure without conviction. Many of the emails and messages revealed behavior that was awkward, inappropriate, or morally questionable, but not enough on their own to support criminal charges. This gray area became one of the most frustrating aspects of the entire release. Several high-profile individuals were forced to respond publicly. Some admitted their messages were embarrassing and poorly judged, calling them jokes taken too far. Others insisted they never visited Epstein's properties, never traveled with him, and never witnessed anything illegal. In nearly every case, the defense was the same: association does not equal participation. Yet the damage was already done. Careers were shaken, reputations bruised, and trust eroded. Even without proof of crimes, the files exposed how Epstein maintained influence through secrecy and access. The story was no longer just about what he did, but about how many people were willing to look away, laugh it off, or stay silent when faced with behavior that should have raised alarms long ago. The Epstein files did more than embarrass. They revealed a web of influence spanning continents. From business moguls to political leaders, the documents hint at connections that few outsiders could imagine. Epstein's network was intricate, and the files showed just how comfortably he moved among the world's elite. Some emails detailed social invitations, lavish events, and introductions to high-profile individuals. Others hinted at morally questionable arrangements, with coded language and vague references leaving much to interpretation. While nothing in these records was concrete evidence of illegal acts by those mentioned, the documents illustrated how Epstein cultivated loyalty and trust. The files also included discussions of international figures, drawing attention to Epstein's unusual interest in Russia and his communications with influential leaders abroad. Observers now questioned: was Epstein merely opportunistic, or did he wield information to gain leverage? In the shadows of power, the lines between curiosity, manipulation, and corruption began to blur. Beyond emails and event invitations, the files hinted at something darker: the possibility that Epstein was gathering leverage. References to private meetings, unusual favors, and personal requests suggested he had access to information that could compromise others. While the evidence didn't prove blackmail, the implication alone was chilling. Some documents revealed attempts to coordinate encounters or introduce individuals under controlled circumstances. Others showed conversations with advisors and assistants, carefully orchestrating logistics and timing. It became clear Epstein's influence was not accidental. It was cultivated with precision, blending charm, intimidation, and secrecy. Observers began to question the motives of those around him. How much did they know? How complicit were they in ignoring warning signs? The files raised a grim realization: Epstein's world was not just about him, but about the power dynamics he exploited, the people he connected with, and the secrets he may have kept that could topple reputations. One of the most haunting aspects of Epstein's story was his untimely death. The files shed little new light on exactly what happened in his federal jail cell, but they hinted at unresolved questions and unanswered possibilities. Reports indicated that just days before his death, Epstein may have been preparing to cooperate with authorities, potentially providing information on powerful associates. This raised a chilling thought: was his death a desperate act, or something more sinister? The files documented discussions about his legal options, potential plea deals, and the implications of his testimony. Some entries suggested the authorities were aware of his risk factors and were attempting to manage them, yet details remained vague. For many, the mystery surrounding his death amplified the tension. The combination of his network, his secrets, and the timing of his demise created a sense of unease. It seemed that even in death, Epstein's influence and the questions he left behind refused to fade. The Epstein files revealed just how global his reach had been. Communications with international figures, including politicians, business leaders, and diplomats, suggested he was not just a domestic player, but someone with influence spanning continents. His interests in Russia, ties to former leaders, and communications with high-profile foreign contacts raised serious questions about the scope of his operations. While there was no direct evidence of espionage or formal affiliations with foreign governments, the repeated mentions of influential individuals, strategic meetings, and financial maneuvers painted a picture of someone extremely well-connected. Observers noted that Epstein seemed fascinated with power structures, often attempting to understand or influence decisions at the highest levels. The files also documented connections to advisors, intermediaries, and aides who facilitated these interactions. It became evident Epstein's world was a carefully constructed network of influence, one that stretched far beyond his private residences or social circles, leaving many wondering just how deep the web went. Among the most sensational revelations were Epstein's connections to royalty. The files included references to prominent members of the British royal family, raising questions about private interactions, invitations, and the nature of their associations. While nothing confirmed illegal activity, the details were enough to generate intense public scrutiny. One striking example involved communications suggesting private meetings at official residences, along with introductions to younger individuals under Epstein's supervision. The emails and notes indicated he was intent on maintaining discretion while expanding his social reach, often using charm, persuasion, or influence to gain access. The media and investigators immediately seized upon these mentions. For the public, it highlighted a world where secrecy, privilege, and potential manipulation intertwined. The files didn't provide proof of wrongdoing for royals, but they confirmed that Epstein had penetrated circles previously thought untouchable, casting long shadows over reputations and raising uncomfortable questions that remain unanswered. The release of the Epstein files also fueled online conspiracy theories, some shocking and some bizarre. From coded messages in emails to references to pizza or cryptic phrases, the internet began connecting dots, often without proof. While many claims were unverified, the files added fuel to speculation about secret networks, hidden children, and unreported activities. Some references appeared mundane, a discussion about meals, social events, or logistics, but theorists interpreted them as evidence of deeper wrongdoing. Analysts noted that while there was no conclusive evidence supporting these extreme claims, the ambiguity created fertile ground for suspicion. Despite the chaos online, investigators and journalists emphasized caution. The files were vast, confusing, and sometimes contradictory. Still, the release made it clear Epstein's influence had sparked imagination, fear, and outrage. Even years after his death, the line between fact and speculation remained blurry, leaving the public grappling with what is real and what is conjecture. The Epstein files also revealed the staggering financial and business networks surrounding him. From billion-dollar investments to luxury properties, the documents illustrated how money was intertwined with access and influence. Epstein's wealth wasn't just personal. It was a tool to attract attention, loyalty, and discretion from powerful figures. Some emails and agreements hinted at favors, introductions, and strategic support between Epstein and elites in finance, tech, and media. While nothing proved criminal intent on the part of his associates, the records showed how easily privilege could shield inappropriate behavior. Morality, it seemed, was negotiable in Epstein's circles. The files suggested that some individuals knowingly ignored questionable actions, while others were unwittingly involved in exchanges they might have found distasteful. The combination of money, access, and secrecy painted a chilling portrait. In Epstein's world, influence often trumped ethics, leaving few safeguards against exploitation or abuse. Even with millions of pages released, many critical questions remain unanswered. Who knew the full extent of Epstein's activities? Were there individuals who actively facilitated his operations, and who remained silent? The files provide glimpses, but rarely the complete picture. Investigators noted that while the documents offered clues, much of the evidence was circumstantial or second-hand. Tips from the public, emails, and internal communications raised suspicions but could not confirm criminal behavior for everyone mentioned. This ambiguity has left the public frustrated and the media scrambling for clarity. For many, the files reinforced a troubling reality. Power and secrecy can obscure truth. Even decades later, the exact boundaries of Epstein's influence remain elusive. The questions linger, from high-profile figures to ordinary individuals touched by his orbit. The world is left wondering whether justice can ever fully catch up. Night had settled over the prison, and silence filled every corner. Jeffrey Epstein sat on the narrow bed of his cell, the dim light above casting long shadows across his face and hands. His posture was tense yet controlled, fingers intertwined on his lap, eyes fixed downward as if tracing invisible lines on the floor. Time moved slowly here. Every minute seemed amplified in the emptiness of the room. Outside, the faint clatter of a guard's footsteps echoed down the hallway, but inside the cell, there was only stillness. 4 hours, he remained in quiet reflection, weighed down by the enormity of events, choices, and secrets he carried. As dawn's first light crept through the small window, the cell remained almost empty of life, a silent witness to the story that had unfolded, a story that still left more questions than answers.